Hello, everyone. In this talk, I'll discuss about some misconceptions of radiation and what can be done. I am Pradip Deb, working in medical radiations, RMIT University, Australia. So in social media, these type of publicity are very common nowadays. Some people deliberately spreading fear about non-ionizing radiations, and there is no evidence yet, but people believe it very quickly without reasoning it with scientific facts. All of you are familiar with 5G network. Many countries around the world are using it since 2019, and it is growing. But there are groups of people who are misinterpreting the effects of non-ionizing radiations in human health. So they claim to believe in science, but they don't trust in scientific facts. 5G network uses millimeter waves of greater than 24.25 gigahertz. So that's the frequency, and we know that our radio frequency is between 0 and up to 300 gigahertz. Those are non-ionizing radiations. Their energy is very less, it's 0.0001 electron volt. And that is like almost 31,000 times lower than the visible light. Blue light energy is about 3.1 electron volt. But still, as you see here, we don't fear of light, but we have got fear of non-ionizing radiations. Somebody is spreading it. So some group did not stop there. They have started spreading conspiracy theory, like say 5G is spreading coronavirus. So people, a few celebrities with millions of fans doing it, like say Carrie Hilton. So here is an example of a Facebook group, if you look at here. So that's the stuff 5G Australia groups who have got like the thousands of members and followers. They're spreading this misconception about 5G network leading with the coronavirus. So the misconception circulated as this 5G network is responsible for COVID-19. So if you look at this one, so this is a very good publication that was published in November 2020 based on that. So this one, as you see here, within few months. So how this spread happens in social media. So these misconceptions led to fear. And because of that fear and misconception, there were attacks on telecommunication workers, and hundreds of mobile towers were set on fire. People are not convinced yet. So government of many countries had to make public statements to give the facts. There is no link between 5G and COVID-19. 5G does not cause COVID-19. It does not spread it, nor does it increase the severity of COVID-19 or make people susceptible to COVID-19. So the scientific evidence shows that the wireless communications, including 5G, do not weaken people's immune system and do not place us at higher risk of getting viruses such as COVID-19. So this is an example of the Australian government statement. So we have got statement from World Health Organization that clearly stated that 5G mobile networks do not spread COVID-19, but a lot of people that do not trust these facts. Instead, they believe pseudoscience. So what kind of pseudoscience? Here is an example. Look at that. These people, some people are making money using people's misconceptions about radiation. This is just one example of thousands out there. These people are claiming that this pendant that protect 5G electromagnetic frequency, and this one, and thousands of these are already sold, and people are reviewing as like a kind of 5-star rating. So Australian Associated Press, they contacted us for fact check about it, and we explained the fact clearly. They published the article explaining the science behind it, busting the myth, because this one can absorb just a small portion of electromagnetic waves that's coming to it, because electromagnetic waves are absorbed by anything. And if you want to absorb the whole thing, you need to wear the whole like a body gown made of this one. So, but still their business is growing, no matter how much science you put in it. And then there are, like we have seen, the similar misconceptions are there about nuclear energies for a long time. So there are continuous anti-nuclear movements around the world. So it has been claimed that the nuclear power plants add the most annual radiation dose per person, but that is not true. If you look at only 0.005% dose comes from nuclear power plants. So 200 times less than that the dose for a flight from Dhaka to New York. So people will get more dose than if they eat a banana in every year. So because banana has got like more radioactive material. So can nuclear reactor explode like a nuclear bomb? No, it is not possible. It is impossible because their technology are different. So nuclear plants are not safe, people say, but it is one of the safest and safer than many industries. And they say like huge nuclear waste will be happening. There are 96% can be recycled, and only 1% of the nuclear fuel are long-lived. These can be shielded effectively, and it has been. So the fact is, nuclear power in the world are actually growing. So there are 440 or more nuclear power reactors provide about 10% of the world's electricity. And it is the second largest source of carbon, like the low carbon power, about 29% of the total in 2018. So there are more than 220 research reactors in over 50 countries. Those are producing medical and industrial isotopes and training and then research. So these medical radioisotopes are saving millions of lives every year. So those are coming from nuclear reactors. So if we look at the prospective nuclear power capacity by 2050, IAES report shows that nuclear power potential will remain high, increase by 42% in 2030, by 83% in 2040, and by more than 100%, 123% in 2050. There will be significant growth in Northern America, Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Asia. So if we look at that, the nuclear energy is the key for low carbon future. We are talking about the controlling global warming and clean energy. So nuclear energy is, if you look at here, is one of the lowest carbon emitting. So if you look at that, how much the gram carbon dioxide are emitted per kilowatt hour, 820 from coal. And then if you look at the natural gas, that's 490. But from nuclear, it's just only 12. And if you compare that one with the windmill, etc., and so you can see that they're very close. So we need to, for our green energy, clean energy, we need to, in future, we need to depend on the nuclear power stations. So any misconception that leads to radiophobia, because the misunderstanding about radiation facts. So people have tendency to misunderstand the radiation fact, but they believe fantasy more than facts. They believe that this can be happening because like the kind of men can be produced by a side effect of radiation. They believe that the Spider-Man can be because of this excessive radiation induced, and also they believe in like a kind of Hulk superpower, because these are cartoon and these are actually the fantasies. But people somehow they are more prone for fantasy compared to the facts. So if you look at the facts, can we really avoid radiation? Can we avoid radiation? We know we can't. Long before the emergence of life, the radioactivity and radiation existed on Earth. Radiation is an important aspect of our daily life. We interact with radiation from several sources, both natural and man-made. If you look at here, huge amount, about 1.7, this is in Australian specs, about 1.7 millisieverts per year per person are added as a background radiation. Those are actually coming from medical radiation, the uses of radiation in medicine. Those uses of radiation in medicine, they are actually saving people's life. So you have got about like 0.6 millisieverts coming from outside, and then there are radon, that's basically from our Earth. There are cosmic, just only 0.3. But look at here, 0.2 millisieverts and 0.1 millisieverts are coming from inside our body. And if there are about atmospheric wavelength testing and etc., that is like less than 0.0005%. So if we look at those, the tendency of using medical radiation, these are continuously growing. If you look at the trend in annual number of medical images that happen, more than 3 billion medical imaging are done. So this is in millions, so that 3 billion are done every year using ionizing radiation. So hence, there are about like the frequency of diagnostic imaging. So that's about 488 per thousand. Almost like 1 in 2% are having at least one diagnostic image in every year. So if you look at that, the trend in the annual effective dose are increasing. Say from here in 1988, it was 0.35, and then now it's 0.62, and even now in 2021, it is grown. We haven't got a very report from Unscare survey report, but very soon we will get one. So the annual average effective dose per person are increasing. United Nations Scientific Committee that on the effects of atomic radiations, that's the Unscare. The annual report shows that. We can see that a global scenario from those reports. So it is true that we cannot avoid radiation and man-made radiations, including the medical uses are adding certainly, yes, like the certain amount of doses every year. And if you look at the medical imaging, so you can see that there are CT scanning, there are nuclear medicine, radioprof, interventional. So a major portion of those, the total dose added into the background is actually coming from the CT scanning. CT scanning gives higher dose. So if we look at that, if you look at the comparative, the effective dose from different types of activities, like we can see the maximum dose are coming from here, the medical diagnostic and nuclear medicine images. So maximum, if you look at for just one type of work or examination, about like say 20 millisieverts. So that's like in general, the maximum. So is this dose definitely producing health risk? And if it is, how much? So let us see the fact, the established fact about it. So these are the radiation risk estimation. And from there, if you look at these, the well-established risk estimation chart, there is no evidence that of human health effect up to 10 millisieverts. So there are activities, most of the diagnostic imaging are actually done and their dose is less than 10 millisieverts and no evidence of human health effects at that range. There are some plausible health effects above 10 millisieverts. So above 100 millisieverts if you go, so there are some scientific evidence of increased cancer risk. So here is the thing. When it is a cancer risk, we are alarmed. And for higher dose, like say for radiation therapy, when it is 1,000 millisieverts or like a kind of 1 sievert, that can cause problem. We know those are deterministic effect. If we increase the dose, the effect gradually increase. But we are more concerned about the risk of cancer. So we generalize the risk without looking at the dose level. So which causes misconception, and hence we get radiation phobia. So what do we do? The ICRP has, based on data collected, estimated that an adult receiving an effective dose of 1,000 millisievert or 1 sievert will have an additional lifetime risk of radiation-induced cancer, 1 in 20,000. So if 20,000 people getting 1 sievert is a huge dose. Only radiation therapy can get that, nothing else. So in 1 in 20,000, one may have some cancer. So this is stochastic effect because we don't know exactly who will have that. So CT had, with a dose of about 22 microsievert, that 2200 microsievert, that is about 2.2 millisieverts, a risk is about 1 in 9,000 of developing fatal cancer. So like the thallium-201, that's for cardiac, that can be increase the dose, increase the risk is 1 in 1,000. So that means if the real risk is 1 in 1,000, the extra dose actually increase that one of that 1 in 1,000. So it is not like making 2 into 1,000. It is a percentage. Without any radiation, the average expectation of dying from cancer is about 25%, 1 in 4. So how do we interpret that risk? That is very important. So here is a very important paper article published in Lancet in 2012, and that's showing that the CT scan in childhood can increase the leukemia and brain tumors. How? If we look at the facts, so 74 of 178,000 patients were diagnosed with leukemia. Remember, these patients were scanned, CT scanned, because they already had some kind of symptom. So 74 out of them had developed leukemia later. So that's the relative risk, exposed versus not exposed, is 3.18. So if we convert this one, like the information, if you're saying it's a like 3-time increase, that's scientifically true. But how much that actually increase? It is like, say, percentage is just 4 in 10,000. And same happened for the brain tumors. 135 of 176,000 patients are diagnosed of brain tumor. And there are, like, the expectation relative risk is 2.82. So the percentage is like the only 0.076%. So that is 7 in 10,000. So it's like huge. So risk interpretation is very important. So if you interpret the risk like this, if we say cancer fears from call for the cut hospital CT scan radiation level, or if you're saying, like the New York Times says, we are giving ourselves cancer, that is bits spread phobia. So the misconception about radiation therapy patients also very important, because we are using the radiation therapy. So there are surveys, very recent survey that was like the Novak and their group, they just complete lack of knowledge in radiotherapy patients. It's about 41%. So they believe that they will become radioactive. The patients believe that radiation will be excreted in their urine or stool. They feared pain. They feared infection from radiation. And also they feared that they will lose their memory. So there are, like, another paper actually just said, and then the evidence is still there. They're saying, like, the patient believe radiation will cause premature menopause, but that is not true. So this is among the patient. So let us see what about the professionals. So there are misconceptions in the profession as well. Very recent review paper that published this year, among the fluoroscopic guided interventional radiologists, they found that they believe it can cause infertility. They believe that the pregnant worker, if they do it, it causes miscarriage. It can cause birth defect. It can cause childhood cancer. But that is not true. There is no evidence of it, but the professional radiologists are believing it. So we have done a few studies among our students and also nurses. So here is one example I can just show you here. Statement was given to our students. So if an apple is exposed to radiation from a gamma emitting radioactive source, and then the source is removed to leave the apple on its own, the apple will become radioactive source. About 32% believe that, and about 40% that did not have any idea. So you see that almost half of our students at the first year basis students, they believe they had misconception about radiation. But after they have been given education, they have rectified, they have corrected their misconception. So we have done another study with the nurses in a very tertiary hospital here in Melbourne. And we have found that a lot of nurses that don't have the necessary radiation knowledge. So if you look at here, so nuclear medicine staff, they have got just nurses, they have got about 60% correct knowledge, but there are some other as well. So you can look at that paper we had published in 2016. So interpretation can cause panic. I can show you an example here. So this is a good paper published in 2011 after Fukushima. This one claiming that the Pacific bluefin tuna transported Fukushima-driven radionuclides across the entire North Pacific Ocean. So what happened? What was the finding? The finding was the cesium-134 was there. That is about 4 becquerel per kilogram. So you see that 4 becquerel, that is just only 4 disintegration per kilogram of tuna. Cesium-137 was just 6.3 becquerel per kilogram. So people were panicked. People say, no, we are getting radioactivity. But to get a health effect from there, correct interpretation would be someone would need to eat about 2.5 to 4 tons of tuna in a year to get a dose that exceeds the health limit. So correct interpretation is very, very important for us. So what are the responsibility of professional bodies? Nobel laureate Rosalind Yalow wrote in a paper in 1989 that the medical physicists are contributing to radiation phobia. How? By not being actively engaged in educating the public and the politician about radiation. It is still applicable to us. Professional bodies should take more programs for public awareness of radiation. They should be more active in media and establish reliable source of knowledge, maybe website and etc., easily accessible by public. They should take educational program for school and college students to inform the facts about radiation. And they should defend the science against all pseudoscience. With that, I thank you very much. I thank you, the committee, for inviting me in this conference. I thank the technical team, and I thank you all for listening.